To say there, I'm now joined by Miriam Cates, who's the Conservative parliamentary candidate for Penistone and Stocksbridge. Miriam, welcome to the show. So, Jonathan Ashworth steaming in there, saying the money is simply not there. He's saying the Tories are desperate. They're making it up as they go along. It's a wing and a prayer. And then he put the boot in when he said Rishi Sunak has lost £1 million to benefit fraud every hour he's been the Prime Minister. What's your response to that?
Well, I didn't catch it all, but it does seem to be a little bit of kind of political arguing about the figures. I think we've all seen over the past few weeks that actually our tax system is so complicated, our economy is so complicated that you can pick and choose figures and make one party seem better than the other and one plan seem better than the other. But I think we're missing the point here, which is that there are some deep structural issues in our economy that have been there for 30 or 40 years potentially. And actually, as politicians, we need to be honest with the public about what we can and can't do with the economy and the kind of things that we would need to do if we do want reform in the long term. And Labour seem to be missing some very important points here. One of those is about demographics. So we have an ageing population. We have far fewer working people for each retiree than we did 30 or 40 years ago. That completely changes the tax base. We have a negative balance of trade now. That means we import more than we export. Until 1997, when the Labour government got in, we actually had a fairly even balance of trade, but since then it's been very negative. Has a real impact on our economy. So there are some much bigger structural issues that are actually far more important than some of the nitpicking that Labour and other parties seem to be doing.
And Miriam, you wrote a very thought-provoking thread on Twitter X about this pensions burden, about the fact there are now, we used to have 4 working-age people to every pensioner. Now it's half of that, it's to 2. And so we have a range of options. We can either raise taxes on the young, or we can try a different method. You came up with a very thought-provoking idea to encourage people, to pay people, to bribe people, in effect, to have more children. Tell us more.
I don't think we should be bribing people or telling people to have more children, but people are telling us that they do want more children, but can't have children or are deciding not to have children because of all sorts of reasons. But one of those reasons is economic. If you think about the burden that young people face now, whether that's tax, student loan, house prices, all those things make it much more difficult to start a family than perhaps it was 20 or 30 years ago. Now, the problem with that is it means we're not having enough babies, we're not having enough children who will grow into adults to go into the workplace to replace those who are leaving the workplace and retiring. And that's why we have this demographic problem, because since the 1970s, we haven't been having enough babies, if you like, to replace the people who are retiring. So this is at the root of our economic problems. Yes, there's waste in the economy. Yes, there's fraud. Yes, there are bad decisions, of course, but they are nothing compared to this demographic problem that we have. So I think we and all of the Western countries, some of which are now trying these things, should do everything we can to get the barriers out of the way, to take those barriers away for young people that want to have children, because having children is not just something that most people want to do, it's absolutely essential for the future of our society and our economy. And of course, we should be paying pensions to people in old age, we should be looking after people in old age, but that should not be at the expense of the young. That should not be stopping young people from having their dreams of having a family and having a house. So these are difficult economic questions that we have to ask. There will be trade-offs, of course there will, but we should be honest about those as politicians and not just say, we'll cut income tax, we'll cut corporation tax, we'll do what Nigel Farage was offering to do, £70 billion we'll take off the tax bill. But where is that going to come from and how are we going to pay for it?
OK, can I ask you about Rishi Sunak? You're probably delighted to see he's finally come out of his bunker. He was missing in action, if you like, from the electoral battlefield over the weekend after his D-Day debacle. Miriam, do you think he's still the right man to lead you into this general election battle, or is it time for Rishi Sunak to raise the white flag, call it a day?
Well, we are in the middle of this election battle. He is the Prime Minister. He is leading us into the election. But I think, as I've said before on a number of occasions, really some of the issues that we've faced as a Conservative Party over the last 14 years, actually, are about the fact that the Conservative Party itself is such a broad church. You have people like me who would say that, I'm a Conservative, I believe in strong family, community and nation. I'm very patriotic. You have people who I would say are much more liberal, but we're all in the same party. But that has made a problem in terms of passing the kind of legislation and kind of acting the kind of way that Conservative voters would expect. And that's made it difficult for all leaders to form some sort of plan that all the MPs would support. So I think, look, Rishi Sunak, he's called this election. He has nailed his colours to the mast. We're in the middle of it now. I'm finding on doorsteps very few of our voters, our Conservative voters in 2019, want to vote Labour. They really don't want to vote Labour. The challenge is getting people to come out. And I think the more we can show people how high the stakes are, yes, they might be rightly frustrated with the Conservative government, rightly frustrated with the Conservative Party, but do they want a Keir Starmer government with a majority of who knows how many hundred, able to destroy our constitution, able to embed even more these kind of left-wing ideas in our institutions that would make it far more difficult in the future for any Conservative government to roll back? That's what's at stake here.